The room looked like it was built for applause. Soft light off glass chandeliers, a band playing something safe, waiters moving like they'd been trained to disappear. At Revenge Pulse, we've sat with a lot of stories that start loud. This one didn't. It started with a smile that never reached a man's eyes. Claire Halston walked into that private maritime club like she'd done it before, but her shoulders were set differently this time. She ran an operations analytics firm in Boston, the kind of work nobody brags about at parties, the kind that keeps companies alive. What mattered wasn't her job. It was the fact that she'd learned to stay calm in rooms where people decide your worth without asking your name. This is where she remembers it from. The first thing I noticed was the seating card. Table near the back. Not family, not friends. Just close enough to say I'd been included and far enough to prove I didn't belong. Elaine had done that on purpose. She'd always had a talent for doing cruel things with clean hands. I stepped around the table and set my clutch down. A server offered champagne. I took it because my hands needed something to do. Elaine appeared at my shoulder like she'd been waiting for the exact moment. "Claire, you came. I said I would." Her eyes did a quick inventory of my dress, my watch, the way my hair was pinned back. "Your father wasn't sure you'd have something appropriate. I managed." She smiled like that was the end of the conversation. It never mattered what I managed. Across the room, Julian was already in a circle of men in suits, laughing too loudly. He didn't look my way. He never did unless he needed something. The band softened. The microphones came alive. A few people turned toward the stage with that trained, polite attention wealthy rooms practice like manners. Robert Halston stepped up, one hand on the podium, the other lifting his glass. "Thank you for coming," he began, warm as varnish. "Tonight means a lot." He thanked board members, partners, people whose names got him nods in rooms like this. Then he moved to family, the way you move from dessert to coffee. "My wife, Elaine," he said, and the room applauded. Elaine put a hand to her chest, perfectly rehearsed. "And Julian," he continued. "Who'll be taking the reins soon?" Julian stood, grinning, soaking it in like sunlight. Then Robert's gaze found me, and the air sharpened. "And Claire," he added, voice still smooth. "She's always taken a different path. It hasn't been easy for her to meet the Halston standard of excellence, but I'm proud she had the strength to come tonight." People laughed, the kind of laugh that pretends it's affectionate. From where we were watching, it wasn't a punchline. It was a placement. I stood, not fast, not dramatic, just enough movement to make the room notice. I lifted my glass toward the stage. "Congratulations. Dad, tonight is the last night you get access to me." I set the glass down without drinking and picked up my clutch. Behind me, chairs shifted. Someone stopped chewing. The band didn't know what to do with the silence. I walked out. My heels sounded too loud in the hallway. And I liked that. I liked that something in that building had to acknowledge I existed. Outside, the night air hit my face like relief. I was halfway to my car when Elaine's voice snapped behind me. "Claire, stop!" Her grip caught my arm. I looked down at her hand until she let go. "You humiliated your father in front of everyone." "I didn't do that." I told her. He did. Robert reached us a second later, jaw tight, eyes flicking toward the windows like he could feel the room watching. "Get back inside," he said. "Fix it." "No." His voice dropped. "If you walk away, you're done. No family, no inheritance. I was done at 20. I replied, "You just kept calling it something else." He took a step closer, like the old version of him still believed proximity was control. "You don't get to do this." "I'm doing it." I got into the driver's seat. My hands were steady on the wheel, which surprised me. Elaine leaned toward the open door, voice turning soft like she was trying on a different mask. "Claire, please, we can talk." "No," I said again, and this time it felt final. I pulled out of the lot and didn't look back. The drive back to Boston took longer than it should have, Not because of traffic, but because my hands wouldn't stop shaking until I crossed the state line. I pulled into a rest stop and sat there with the engine running, phone face down in the cup holder. I didn't need to see the messages to know they were coming. That night wasn't new. It was just louder. After my mother died, the house didn't fall apart. It reorganized. Elaine moved in with boxes that smelled like lavender and new furniture polish. Julian followed, already tall, already confident, already certain he belonged. Within months, family photos shifted. Frames disappeared from the hallway. New ones replaced them. Julian at a soccer tournament. Julian at a debate podium. Me, cropped out or pushed to the edge like background scenery no one noticed until it was gone. Elaine never yelled. That was her talent. At dinner, she'd pass Julian the serving dish first, even if I was closer. Growing boys need fuel, she'd say lightly, smiling like it was a joke everyone understood. My father would nod without looking up from his plate. When report cards came, Julian's were placed on the kitchen counter. Mine stayed in my backpack. That's nice. Claire, my father would say if he noticed at all. But Julian's grades really matter this year. Once, when I was 16, I asked him if he'd come to my orchestra recital. He glanced at his calendar and sighed. That's the same night as Julian's college tour dinner. Oh, I said. He didn't apologize. He didn't explain. He just moved on, already done with the conversation. The only person who noticed was my grandmother, Ruth. She called every Sunday at exactly 5. Not 4:58, not 5:05. You sound tired, she'd say. I'm fine. She'd pause, just long enough to tell me she didn't believe that. You don't have to be impressive with me, Claire. When she visited, she sat beside me, not across the room. She asked about my classes, my friends, what I was reading. When Elaine talked over me, Ruth would wait until the room quieted again. Let her finish. That was it. No argument, just a correction. At holidays, Ruth always slipped me something small, a book, a note, once a check folded into a card with my name written carefully, like it mattered. Elaine hated that. I could tell by the way her mouth tightened when she saw it. After Ruth left, the house would settle back into its usual shape. Julian in the center, Elaine orbiting, my father approving from a distance, and me, learning how to take up less space without disappearing entirely. By the time I was grown, it felt normal. That was the part that took the longest to unlearn. My father called me home on a Wednesday. Family meeting, he said over the phone, like it was a calendar item. Be here by 6. I was in the middle of packing for a campus interview, folders spread across my dorm bed. I told him I had class. You can miss one, he replied. This is important. When I walked into his study, the lights were already on. The room smelled like leather and the lemon polish Elaine used on the shelves. My father sat behind the desk. Elaine stood beside him, one hand resting on his shoulder. They looked practiced, ready. Sit down. Claire, my father said. Eyes on the papers in front of him. I took the chair across from the desk. The leather was cold through my jeans. He folded his hands. We need to talk about some changes. Elaine nodded, her mouth already arranged into concern. Just temporary adjustments. I waited. Julian's been accepted into a legacy program. My father continued. It's a major opportunity. The kind that sets a trajectory. That's great for him, I said, and meant it. My father exhaled. The company's cash flow is tight right now. Market volatility. Legal exposure. We need to be careful. Elaine slid a folder toward me. We all have to make sacrifices. I opened it. Forms. Dense paragraphs. Legal language I recognized just enough to know I didn't fully understand. This is just a release, Elaine said quickly. A waiver. Nothing dramatic. My father leaned forward. Your mother set aside an education fund. Under the circumstances, we need flexibility. Flexibility, I repeated. He nodded. You can always go back later, when things stabilize. Elaine reached over and tapped the signature line with her manicured nail. You're young. You'll land on your feet. A girl like you doesn't need a rigid plan. Something tightened in my chest. You told Mom you'd support my education. My father's jaw shifted. Circumstances change. The room felt smaller. The clock on the wall clicked louder than it should have. Elaine softened her voice. This helps the whole family. Julian's success benefits all of us. I looked down at the papers again. Waiver and release. Relinquishment of claim. Temporary. They'd said, just for now. My father pushed a pen toward me. We're counting on you to be reasonable. I thought about Ruth's voice on the phone. You don't have to be impressive with me. I signed. The pen felt heavier than it should have. My name looked strange on the page, like it belonged to someone else. Elaine closed the folder immediately. Brisk. Efficient. Thank you, Claire. We knew you'd understand. My father stood. We appreciate your maturity. I waited for something else. An explanation. A promise. Anything that made it feel less final. Nothing came. As I stood to leave, Elaine added, almost kindly, we'll revisit this once things settle. I nodded because that was what I'd been trained to do. When I got back to campus that night, my roommate asked how it went. Fine, I said, placing the interview folder back in my drawer. I didn't unpack it again. Not that year. The apartment was smaller than it looked online. 400 square feet, technically. That was the phrase the listing used. In reality, it meant the bed touched the wall if I stretched my arm out, and the radiator knocked like it was trying to get my attention all night. The window faced an alley where delivery trucks idled too long in the mornings. I told myself it was temporary. The cafe downstairs opened at 6. By 5:30. I was tying my apron and pulling my hair back, hands already smelling like soap and old coffee grounds. The first regulars came in half awake, phones in their hands, headphones still on. One of them leaned on the counter. Expensive jacket, private school confidence, extra hot. He said, last time it was lukewarm. I nodded and remade the drink without comment. Steam fogged the espresso machine. The milk burned my fingers through the pitcher. He took a sip, frowned, then shrugged. Better. I watched him walk out, laughing into his phone, talking about a weekend trip I couldn't afford to imagine yet. There were days Julian would have fit right into this place. Same age, same ease, same assumption that the world would adjust itself around him. During slow hours, I wiped down the counter again and again until my manager noticed. You don't have to scrub it raw, he said, sliding a rag back toward me. You nervous or something? Just thinking. He nodded like that made sense. Grab a muffin before they go stale. You look like you forgot breakfast. I took it, even though I hadn't. Hunger worked differently back then. It came and went on its own schedule. At night, I sat on the edge of the bed with my laptop balanced on my knees, taking free courses and watching lectures at double speed. Operations, systems, supply chains, things that made sense because they followed rules. When the radiator knocked, I knocked back once with my knuckles, like we had an understanding. In the mornings, I put on the same clean shirt and went back downstairs. No one there knew who my father was. That helped more than I expected. The first lease I signed wasn't for an office. It was for a desk. 3rd floor of a converted warehouse near Kendall Square. Shared printer, bad coffee, a conference room you had to reserve like it was a luxury item. I remember standing there with the keys in my hand, realizing no one cared who my family was. They just wanted the rent on time. That was enough. I registered the company under Soundbridge Holdings, clean and boring by design. Harborline Strategies lived inside it like a locked drawer. I stayed off the website, off the pitch decks, off everything that would invite curiosity. The managing partner I hired noticed right away. So you're not the face, he said, skimming the draft materials. That's unusual. I don't need to be. I replied, He leaned back, considering. Clients like knowing who's in charge. They like results more. A pause, then a nod. All right, we do it your way. We shook hands. No ceremony. Just an agreement that this would stay professional. Work came slowly at first. Small logistics audits, routing cleanups, warehouse flow problems no one wanted to admit they'd ignored. I stayed late, running models, checking assumptions twice. When something worked, I documented it. When it didn't, I scrapped it without apology. A year in, my grandmother died. The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing a data set. I stepped into the hallway to take it. The lawyer's voice was calm, precise. Ruth Halston left you a separate trust. Separate landed heavier than the rest. A week later, I sat across from her at a polished table while she slid the documents forward. 700,000, she said. Unconditional. No family disclosure. I swallowed. She planned this. She was very specific. I used part of it to stabilize the company. Not to scale fast. To breathe. The rest stayed untouched, like a line I promised myself I wouldn't cross unless I had to. Harbor Line grew anyway. 11 people. Then 12. A small team who knew their work and didn't ask about my last name. The managing partner brought in a client list one afternoon and set it down between us. We're getting attention, he said. Big attention. I scanned the names. One stopped me cold. Halston Freight. I didn't react. Not outwardly. The managing partner watched my face. We submit through the open process. No shortcuts. Of course. I said, steady. We do everything clean. He smiled. That's why they'll never see us coming. I closed the folder and nodded. The company had my name on the incorporation papers. It didn't need it anywhere else. We won the bid on a Thursday afternoon. The managing partner stepped into my office with his tablet tucked under his arm, trying not to smile too early. They ranked us first. He said, clean sweep on the technical side. I looked at the name at the top of the page and let myself breathe once. Any comments, strong modeling, clear documentation, conservative assumptions. He shrugged. They like boring when it works. Good, I said. Boring is sustainable. The onboarding meetings stayed virtual. Account managers, legal teams, operations leads. I didn't appear on a single call. That was intentional. Harbor Line spoke through process, not personality. A few weeks later, I was at my desk when a clip started circulating internally. An industry luncheon. Someone had posted a recording. My father stood at a podium, a familiar backdrop behind him. Same posture, same voice. We've seen meaningful improvements this quarter. Robert said, our consulting partners have been transformative. Whoever's running that firm understands discipline. A few people in the room laughed appreciatively. I closed the video before it ended. At the next quarterly review, our dashboard lit up green, reduced transit time, lower fuel variance, fewer exceptions flagged overnight. Julian's name appeared on the distribution list, copied on every summary. During one internal check-in, our lead analyst leaned back in her chair. They're fully integrated now. Routing, scheduling, exception handling. Pulling us out would be messy. We're not pulling out, I said. We're documenting. She nodded, already typing. Everything. Months passed. The contract settled into routine. Invoices went out. Payments arrived on time. Harbor Line became part of the background noise of Halston Freight's operations. One afternoon, the managing partner dropped a printed agenda on my desk. They want to extend, he said. 5 more years. I skimmed it. Improved terms. Expanded scope. Confidence baked into every line. They look comfortable, he added. They should. I replied, they're seeing the outcome, not the mechanism. At a networking event I didn't attend, my father apparently praised the partnership again, this time to a shipping executive who asked for an introduction. I've never met their leadership, Robert said. According to someone who'd been there, everything goes through their team. Doesn't matter. Results speak for themselves. I read that line twice. Julian forwarded one of the performance summaries to the board with a short note. Costs down. Margins steady. Strong execution. No questions. No curiosity. Just the numbers at the bottom. I saved the message and filed it away. Somewhere between the third and fourth renewal reminder, I realized the irony had stopped feeling sharp. It felt settled, like something waiting. The messages started the next morning. Not from my father. He never reached first. They came from numbers I hadn't seen in years. Cousins. An aunt who'd once forgotten my birthday 3 times in a row. Are you okay? We're worried about you. Your dad says you seemed overwhelmed. I let the phone buzz on the kitchen counter while the kettle boiled. The sound felt too loud in the quiet apartment. Elaine tried later that afternoon. Her voicemail was soft, almost tender. Claire, sweetheart, we're just concerned. This isn't like you. Maybe you should talk to someone. We can help. I deleted it without finishing. By evening, the tone shifted. Fewer hearts. More implication. People are talking. We just want to make sure you're stable. I forwarded everything to my attorney and didn't add commentary. She replied within the hour. If you want this to stop, we formalize it. I nodded to myself and typed a single sentence to confirm. The email went out under her letterhead, copied only where necessary. All personal communications will be archived as evidence of harassment should the dissemination of false information continue. No accusations. No emotion. Just a boundary drawn in clean lines. After that, the phone went quiet. I noticed my shoulders drop when the silence settled in. Not relief exactly. Something closer to space. That night, I ate dinner standing at the counter because I hadn't bought a table yet. Halfway through, my screen lit up once more. Unknown number. I didn't answer. From where we were watching, this was the moment the family realized something had changed. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough to know the old methods no longer worked. I finished my meal, rinsed the plate, and set my phone face down again. The quiet held. They arrived together, which told me everything. Robert walked in first, posture stiff, eyes already scanning the room like it was a negotiation table. Elaine followed, clutching her bag with both hands. Julian trailed behind them, jaw tight, impatience leaking out of him. I stood when they entered, not because I owed them anything, because it was my office. Robert didn't sit right away. This is unnecessary, he said, voice low. We can handle this privately. Sit down, I told him. Or we don't talk. He hesitated, then took the chair across from me. Elaine and Julian followed. Julian leaned forward immediately. You can't do this. You have no idea what pulling this contract means. I know exactly what it means. Robert slid the folder I'd sent across the table. This, he said, tapping it. This is some kind of game. It's documentation. Elaine's voice trembled. Claire, why didn't you tell you what? I replied, keeping my hands flat on the table. That I built something after you decided I didn't need one. Julian scoffed. You don't even have a degree. No, I said. I have ownership. I opened my laptop and turned it toward them. Incorporation records, audit trails, clean and boring. Robert stared at the screen longer than anyone else. When he looked up, his voice had changed. Calculating now. What do you want? I met his eyes. You're not a villain in my story anymore. Robert, you're just a line item I've decided to cut. No one spoke after that. I stood, opened the door, and waited. They left without another word. The call from my uncle came a week later. His voice sounded older than I remembered, tired, but steady. Your mother didn't mean for that money to be shared. He told me. The education fund was for you. Your grandmother found out after you signed the release. That's why she built the trust the way she did. I thanked him. Not because it fixed anything, but because it closed a door that had been rattling in my head for years. Work went on. Harborline transitioned the contract cleanly. 90 days. Documentation delivered. No press. No statements. The company adjusted. People always do. One evening, I stayed late and walked the long way home along the water. The harbor was quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't ask anything from you. My phone buzzed once in my coat pocket. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, then deleted it without listening. That felt new, not powerful. Just honest. I set up a small grant the following month, private and unannounced. Tuition support for students who'd had to step away from school because their families decided something else mattered more. I put my grandmother's name on it, and my mother's at home. I ate dinner at the table I finally bought. Real plates. No rush. I realized something that night, sitting there in the quiet. Claire Halston wasn't walking away anymore. She was standing exactly where she'd built herself to be, and that was enough. From our side. We didn't hear from her again, but stories like this tend to travel quietly. If this one stayed with you, you know where to find the next.